Megas, Gigantamax, Z-moves, Terastallization, Megas again. With all of these powers combined, we may finally be able to crack the code on what the next great Pokemon mechanic is going to be. Greetings, Beyond the New, come on in, sit on down, and that is exactly what we're doing today. And with Pokemon Day just around the corner, it has a lot of us wondering exactly what Generation 10 could be bringing. And with it being Pokemon's 30th anniversary, we are kind of expecting a lot. So I really wanted to go into this, much as we've done with our other 30 plus transformations, and figure out what these Pokemon could look like, not just when growing, but when pushed and evolved into their truest and most ultimate form. So, without much further ado, let's hop right into today's video. So let's hop right in with one of the most popular Pokemon to enter the franchise, with Eevee. Eevee is a Pokemon who became well known not for what it is, but for what it has potential to become. You'll be a lawyer, you'll be a doctor, you'll be a fireman. No, Mom, I want to be an artist! So I had to wonder with these ultimate evolutions what an Eevee could become when left to its own devices. And after millions of years of evolution happening in an instant through the power of this magical space rock, we get the opportunity to find out. See, I've read the comments from those of you who are new to the series and understand the confusion. That confusion between what exactly separates Ultimate Evolution from other form change mechanics like Mega Evolution and Gigantamaxing. Well, it's simple and lies primarily in the lore. See, Ultimatium is a space rock that houses within it energies associated to Arceus himself and the creation of the Pokemon world. By coming into contact with one of these stones, Pokemon don't just unlock their true potential, they evolve in much the same way that real-world animals do, except rather than taking place over the course of millions of years, it happens all in a single instant. In the case of Eevee, this transformation happens without the incorporation of evolution methods. One small hiccup. If it is the case that these are fragments of Arceus, it has to beg the question as to what type of creature would be powerful enough to break them off? What kind of Pokemon, if we could even call it a Pokemon, would have existed alongside Arceus in this primordial space? And does this change everything that we, as Pokemon researchers, understand about the origin of the Pokemon species? Who's to say, really? But regardless, here's Ultimate Eevee. It takes into account the body shapes of its multiple evolutions, but now applies these features under the skin of our standard Eevee. And you guys do know how much I love removing skin. So here's Ultimate Eevee.
Ultimate Eevee, the evolution Pokemon. This Pokemon is said to harness the power of all of its ancestors who came before it, and functions as a primary link to our understanding of how Ultimatium affects the lineage of a Pokemon changed by this phenomenon.
But while Eevee is a highly sought-after Pokemon, there are those who have been forgotten to time. Pokemon who hardly anyone takes as their favorite. I'm looking at Pokemon like Lunatone and Solrock.
Who?
Yeah, they are some cool Pokemon who have almost this air of mystery around them that led many, myself included, to think that there was some form of greater connection to these guys and the cosmos. And with the introduction of Pokemon like Minior, that want for more out of these guys only increased. But we've been let down time and time again, with them not gaining a Mega or a G-Max form either. So I figured it was time for a bit of a payoff. Time for these guys to get something that made them truly interesting. So I figured, why not a shared ultimate form? Space is cool. Point blank, space is cool, and there's a lot that we can pull from there. So when combining the forms of a sun and moon into a singular entity, I went with the idea of a solar eclipse, wherein the moon passes in front of the sun, at least from our perspective here on Earth. Now, there is one rule when dealing with solar eclipses, one very important rule that so many of us keep a healthy fear of in the back of our minds whenever these cosmic events happen. That rule is simple.
Don't look at it. Shut your eyes, Murray, and don't look at it no matter what happens.
The reason is because as the moon blocks out the sun, the light that permeates around our lunar satellite becomes more and more intense, as its space to flourish becomes smaller and smaller. So now you aren't just looking at the sun, but at a hyper-focused ring of solar light that wants nothing more than to take your eyes. So, time for a field trip, I guess. So for the design, I wanted to emulate that idea with shapes that look like a combination of the two Pokemon, ringed by this blaring light. And it's hardly the first Pokemon to have the "don't look at me" stylization, with Shedinja and Mimikyu having a similar idea. Staring into the back of a Shedinja pulls your soul into its husk body, and Mimikyu is so scary and horrifying that looking at its true form will just flat out kill you. No Shadow Realm, no black out and run to the Pokemon Center. You die until you are dead. So here's Ultimate Solrock or Ultimate Lunatone if you're nasty.
Ultimate Lunatone, Ultimate Solrock, the Meteorite Pokemon. It draws in power from cosmic rays to fuel its energy furnace. It's said that when it absorbs too much power, its light can become blinding.
One of the key features of Ultimate Evolution is that it affects every Pokemon in an evolutionary line. And with, well, over 1,000 Pokemon, I have a bit of a road ahead of me. But with 30-ish already done, we're technically well on our way. I may have made a mistake here, but I figure that if I can make anybody become a fan of a Pokemon like Swirlix, then the mission isn't quite lost yet. So yeah, I took a Pokemon that I personally dislike and decided to give him an ultimate form. I had a lot of reason to hate this Pokemon. It felt so lazily designed, and its evolution Slurpuff doesn't necessarily give me a ton to look forward to. And given that it was initially a trade evolution and I had, as I've said before, no friends growing up, I was just kind of stuck with Swirlix. So with all of that working against it, I wanted to try and make it at least a little bit more exciting, and come up with the idea of it skating along on its tongue. Its Alpha Sapphire Dex entry says that it eats nothing but sweets, and its Sword entry says that if it doesn't eat its own weight in sugar every day, it becomes grumpy. So what if over the course of its millions of years of evolution, it gained the ability to draw out simple chemicals from everything around it, to create its own sugars? Given that there aren't a ton of sugar building blocks around, it evolved to just keep its tongue out as it moves and pulls in as much material as possible for its internal chemical alchemy. So here's Ultimate Swirlix. I don't hate it quite as much.
Ultimate Swirlix, the cotton candy Pokemon. This Pokemon can be quite speedy as it glides around on its elongated tongue. Their taste buds are highly evolved to be able to sense sugars in even the sourest of places. They will wrap their trainers in their tongue as a show of affection, as well as taste testing, as they have become confused when they are treated to kindness, but something sweet isn't the thing being kind to them.
It feels like as Pokemon games progress, it becomes more difficult to find designs that we all universally enjoy. But one group that I think we've nailed time and time again are the regional bugs, and Alola's Vikavolt line is no exception. I mean, it's a little grub shaped like a charger that becomes a battery and takes the logical jump to Railgun Bug, and I dig it! A lot of the Pokemon we're looking at today I either love or hate, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on what other Pokemon should be given ultimate forms next. The best place to chill out max and relax all cool while shooting some b-ball outside the school is, of course, through our Discord, where we talk about everything from Five Nights at Freddy's to Transformers to the current socioeconomic state of the United States. Wait, sorry, that last one we don't have a ton of, and I'm perfectly happy to keep it that way. But one topic that I desperately want us discussing in there is best regional bug. So if you're watching, then make sure to hop into the Discord, which is down in the description, and give some love for Butterfree, Vivillon, Scolipede, Orbeetle, or Vikavolt. Now, back to design. How to expand on the idea of Vikavolt? Well, I looked at turning it into a spaceship-style design, while not wanting to retread that Orbeetle road. So I instead looked at Star Cruisers instead of your typical UFO, and Destiny actually gave me some great inspiration, with those sharp noses and wide winged backs. Plus, as one of the 5 people who actually liked Destiny 2, I knew I could hide my inspiration pretty well. So let's go Mach 10 with Ultimate Vikavolt.
Ultimate Vikavolt, the Stag Beetle Pokemon. This Pokemon is always ready to attack, as electrical pulses move through its mandibles. As a display of force, this Pokemon is known to create orbs of electricity and spread out its wings to create an energized silhouette, before firing from its barrel-like stingers.
Mimic Pokemon have always been a favorite of mine, and we can't move on without talking about one of the first, Sudowoodo. And while I'm aware that Voltorb was the first, I just couldn't figure out how to further evolve the idea without going full Master Ball, which has been done to death. So, to Sudowoodo we go. And with me living a short drive from the absolutely massive and beautiful redwood trees of Sequoia National Park, I had to wonder what a super tall Sudowoodo might look like. Only thing is, given that these ultimates tend to swap colors, I wanted to make this design feel so much more mystic, and so ended up going with a pretty fun color scheme once we get to that point. And as much as I love Sudowoodo, my favorite of the line has to be Bonsly, or Bonsly if you're nasty. Mega forms have started looking a lot more at Prevo forms for inspiration, like we see with Mega Feraligatr mimicking Totodile, and so I took the same note here, and gave Sudowoodo that broader base, which I believe also helps with that distribution of balance across the shaping that we've used. So, wait, hold on, where'd he go? Oh, right, there it is, Ultimate Sudowoodo!
Ultimate Sudowoodo, the imitation Pokemon. They stand perfectly still in clusters within dense forests. Their ability to change color to match the surrounding trees helps them to blend in and remain hidden. But with their immense size, any slight movement results in minor earthquakes that can startle any nearby Pokemon or trainers.
Last but not least is a highly anticipated design, that being Krookodile. When playing through Unova, I definitely didn't give this line the time of day. There's already a crocodilian who lives rent-free in my heart. But with the reveal of Mega Feraligatr, I'm ready to find love again. So I decided to give this Croc a massive makeover. The Pokemon line keeps up basically the same shape between Krokorok and Krookodile, gaining a little heft in the last form as well as some color change. But I want to go deeper. I want to beef him up even more and make this ultimate feel like a genuine threat that an evil team may keep in their back pocket. I picture this as our Pyroar to Lysander, our Golisopod to Guzma, our Persian to Giovanni. This ultimate needs to feel mean in the way that makes you say, "But daddy, I can change him." The massive spike fins I've added to the back are meant to emulate the raised collars on the leather coats of greasers, and the stripes are a reference to the look of Elvis in Jailhouse Rock, or to your typical old-timey prisoner jumpsuits. Toward the end, we do add in some glowy effects, as many ultimates already have, but these stripes need to do a lot of the heavy lifting. And while playing with color, I decided I wanted to go to a stark difference, other than what we see in the initial design with Krookodile, where he's kind of this deep maroon, instead giving him this lively bluish color. As I've said before, this whole gimmick is based on Ben 10 Ultimate Alien, and one key design point there is a drastic change in color. So given the importance of this Pokemon in story, I wanted it to have every facet of the idea implemented, and boy, oh boy am I glad that they are. So let's give a for Ultimate Krookodile.
Ultimate Krookodile, the intimidation Pokemon. It can spot prey at over 60 miles, and will tunnel its way underground to pursue its quarry, jumping up through the rock and sand to launch an ambush attack. When it roars, the bands on its body blast to life, knocking sediment loose and allowing it to see in its vast network of underground tunnels.
So who is your favorite? Who are you adding onto the team? Let me know down in the comments below. And hey! Before you get all the way down there, consider stopping by the description where you can find various opportunities to support the channel. Some of our lovely people who allow this content to happen are listed on either side of me. And if you want to join those lists as well as get high resolution images of some of the Pokemon you've seen today, early access to videos and Photoshop files that coincide with these videos, make sure to check that out. And as always, make sure to check out G Fuel down below. They actually sponsored this video, and right now if you use code STERN, that's STERN, yes, you'll get 30% off of your next purchase. So make sure to check them out. The link's down below. And with all of that said, it sounds like you know where to find me, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.